In this video, I'm testing Lindy and Voiceflow in 7 areas from ease of use and telephony options to latency, pricing, and hidden costs to see which is the better platform for building voice AI agents. I'll also link to a side-by-side comparison below with all the results, and you can plug in your requirements to see which tool's the better fit for you. So let's start with Lindy. So Lindy AI is more a general AI automation platform for building AI agents that happens to have Lindy Phone, which is a voice agent tool within it. So it's not necessarily an apples and apples comparison here because Lindy is not just a platform for building voice agents. There's a lot more you can do with it. That said, a lot of people using Lindy are using it because it was one of the early platforms to allow you to build automation workflows that incorporated voice AI. So building voice agents in Lindy is really straightforward. I'll just show you a quick example. Go into this AI virtual assistant. And if you go into the flow editor, you can see you've got this nice kind of visual canvas where you can build out your agents. So each box is an AI agent, and you can give them access to Lindy Phone, which is a tool that allows it to make calls or receive calls. So if we click into here, we can see we've got the prompt set for the agent. And down here, we've given it this skill to make phone calls. So if we go into here, we can then configure this. So you've got a few things you can customize. Of course, you can customize the model that it's using, as well as the phone number that it's calling from. So you can buy phone numbers directly in the Lindy platform. You don't have as many options of importing them from things like Twilio, for example. And they're a little bit more expensive. I think phone numbers are about $10 per month on Lindy. And somewhat to be expected, we don't have as much in the way of things we can customize here. Like there's nothing around voicemail, interruption handling, or any of the fine tuning that you would expect to be able to play around with in a dedicated voice agent platform. So this is the compromise that we have with Lindy, is that because it's a general AI automation platform, we have a huge amount of other stuff that we can do. The amount of integrations we have is absolutely incredible. And if you're building voice agents as part of a wider automation workflow, it's a really good platform. The voice realism is pretty good. It's as good as any of the others. But really where Lindy is going to excel is on the integration front. So if I just go in here and I'll give you a sense of kind of how broad the range of integrations we have are. So Lindy, for example, you can fire up a computer, connect it into any of these tools. We've got scrapers that you can fire up. Absolutely incredible, the range of stuff that you can do on Lindy. So a few things worth being aware of with Lindy. Now, I love using Lindy for kind of general AI automation. It's an incredibly powerful platform. But the reason I typically don't use it for voice AI use cases is that it generally gets a bit cost prohibitive. So for $75 a month on the Pro plan, you can see we only get 30 phone calls a month, which is very expensive if that is your main use case. Even if we go up to $200 a month, we only get 100 phone calls per month. So if you're doing anything at scale, it's probably not going to make sense using Lindy compared to using a dedicated voice agent platform. But as I say, for general AI automation stuff, it's pretty phenomenal what you can do with it. Latency is not bad. Again, it's not the best I've seen. I've not done a standardized latency test on Lindy, but anecdotally from when I've used it, I would probably put the latency at around about 1 second. So there is a bit more of a lag compared to using something like a Vapi or a Retail, where you can really fine tune the models and get the latency down, but it's not bad. It's very usable for just kind of little use cases where you need to incorporate voice AI as part of a larger workflow. So next up, let's have a look at Voiceflow. So Voiceflow is a platform for building customer service AI agents. And there's 2 parts to this. There's the kind of the voice agent part and then also chat agents. And so in Voiceflow, you're building an agent that can be used either as a chatbot embedded on a website, or it can be run as a voice agent. I mention this because when you start building stuff in Voiceflow, it becomes quickly apparent that some features are more designed for the chat agents. So building voice agents is pretty straightforward, and a nice feature is you can just enter in a prompt and it's going to build out an agent workflow around that. So if we go into an agent I've previously built, you can see this nice canvas where you can build out your agents on. And building out these flows is pretty straightforward. You can just drag and drop to add agents. I personally don't love that you have to kind of double click into these to configure your agent. So you have to click on it once, then you have to click that, and then you pop your prompts in here and you can change things like the model. But credit where it's due, Voiceflow's got a decent amount of native integrations. You can see up here we've got things like Make.com, HubSpot, Airtable, Google Sheets, Gmail, and then we can also connect this into MCP servers, webhooks, etc. In general, it's a pretty powerful platform that's pretty easy to use. In terms of testing your agents, similar to a lot of tools, you can simulate a call in the platform.
Connor, an AI agent that will demonstrate some key concepts in Voiceflow. In this step, I'll demo how you can use exit conditions to navigate the conversation based on the user's intention.
So I personally don't find the voice realism in Voiceflow quite as good as some of the alternatives. It sounds a little bit more robotic. One area where I have been surprisingly impressed by Voiceflow is latency. So When I ran the standardized latency test on Voiceflow, it was only slightly slower than VAPI, which is pretty incredible considering that VAPI is basically just the voice AI infrastructure. So Voiceflow beat both Retail AI and Simflow by quite a decent margin. I would like to see a little bit more in the way of metrics and stats that kind of highlight this. They don't make that quite as visible as some of the other platforms. But if you do run a test, you can see the real-time latency in the logs, as well as your credit usage, which I really like. It's really nice to be able to see this breakdown here while you're testing. Now, telephony options, if we go back into the dashboard, you can go to phone numbers and you can add phone numbers here from the dashboard. Unlike some of the other platforms, you don't get any free numbers with Voiceflow, so you will need to import your phone numbers from another platform. For me, this is not a deal breaker because I kind of have to do this anyway, regardless of what platform I'm using, because I generally need UK numbers. And the platforms that do give you free numbers, generally it's only a US or a Canadian one. Plus, they generally have restrictions on them around things like outbound calling. So not a deal breaker, but it's quite nice to get the free numbers just when you're testing. So it's one less thing that you have to do. So a few other things that are just worth being aware of. When it comes to concurrency, it's going to depend on what plan you're on. So by default on the Pro plan, which is $60 a month, you get 5 concurrent phone lines. Then when you go up to the business plan, you get 15, and then enterprise, presumably it's whatever you negotiate. Now, while we're talking about pricing, Voiceflow is a fairly interesting one because as you can see here, we've got these kind of flat monthly pricing plans. But really what's going on here is you still have an amount of credits. So you can see we've got 10,000 credits, but there's no monthly rollover. The long and short of this is that if you actually use the amount of credits that you buy, then Voiceflow is very affordable. It comes out to around about 8 cents per minute, which is pretty much as low as you can possibly get at the moment for building a voice agent. However, the quirk around the monthly rollover means that, for example, if you only used half your credits one month, you're effectively paying double that amount, which means that's quite a lot more expensive than some of the alternatives. So it all comes down to whether you're actually going to use the amount of credits that you're buying. One little hack you could do is pay for an annual plan, and then you don't have to worry about the monthly rollover. You could also get a lower number of credits in the annual plan, so you kind of definitely use them up. But it's a little bit of a weird way of doing pricing. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually change it, because most of the other voice agent platforms start with this kind of pricing and then eventually go to pay-as-you-go because of that reason. So both of these are great options for building voice agents on, and given that you can try both of them out for free, I'd recommend doing that to see which one's going to be a better fit for your use case. Now, I'll drop links to both of them below, as well as the side-by-side comparison I put together. And if you'd like to watch me live build the same voice agent on both platforms, as well as 4 other voice AI tools, and then live test them with real phone calls, you can check that video out here.